Where's mine? Where's my phone? All right, we are gonna watch some stuff, some things, some stuff and things. Once I find my phone. Oh, it's sitting on it. So this one's by Mythos, the historian, creatures and monsters of Asian folklore. Give me a second. I gotta. All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a fascinating journey into the mystical world. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a fascinating journey into the mystical world of Asian folklore. Today, we'll
playing
delve
this
into
in
the
like
rich tapestry of stories and myths that have been passed
1.5
down through the
speed.
generations, exploring creatures and monsters that have captivated or terrified the imagination of millions. So, let's begin. Ikek. The Ikek is a creature from Filipino folklore, specifically from the Ilocano region of the Philippines. It is a vampiric creature resembling a large black bird. The Ikek has the ability to shapeshift into human form during the day. At night, it transforms into a monstrous bird and hunts for prey, particularly targeting unborn children. It is feared for its
We could
blood-sucking
make
tendencies and is
the
believed to bring misfortune
Garudas
and death to
resemble
those
an
it encounters.
Epec. They're kind of
Kitsune.
similar.
From Japanese mythology and folklore, the kitsune is
Garudas,
a
of
mythical
course,
creature
like the.
depicted as a fox with
Maybe
magical
we'll
abilities.
change the
Kitsune are known for their
Ruhanas to
shape-shifting
become
abilities,
Epecs,
often
and
taking
then
the form of
Epecs
beautiful women
become
to deceive humans.
Garudas.
They possess multiple tails, with the number indicating their age and power. Kitsune are associated with intelligence, mischief, and both benevolent and malevolent intentions. They are revered for their wisdom and magical prowess, often appearing as tricksters or faithful guardians. Naga. The Naga is a creature from Hindu, Buddhist, and Southeast Asian mythologies. Naga are often depicted as serpentine beings, with the
All right, I'm thinking for the Nagas. I already know about the Nagas and like how they play in certain like Buddhism stories or mythos. Or a lot of like Eastern cultures have the representation of the Nagas or like the snake people. So, I haven't released chapter. Well, I mean, like I've shown you guys like some stuff from time to time, but I just finished. I'm like up to like chapter 9 on the book, and I got to like around 20,000 words, so I wanted to kind of stop, take a breather, and like relearn my story as like what I've wrote. So I'm going through it, reading it, and doing my like initial kind of not rewrite, but just like fixing some errors up, making sure that I'm using the correct POV throughout. Make sure I'm not using any kind of superfluous work, because I know when I like just like type, when I just like flow, I'm always using like like I'm always hesitant, right? So when I write, I always put like it seems like I'm not sure, and the uncertainty doesn't need to be there in that like specific section. Sometimes it does need to be there, but like in the sections that I was reading, it like didn't need to be there, so like I'd remove those things, right? So it's essentially just like me reading it over again, and then just adding like a little bit more nuance to the conversation, or maybe making the description less descriptive and more applicable to what the character would know. So I'm just trying to make sure that like I'm in the correct POVs, that I'm like I still don't really fully understand the nuances between like limited and like omniscient. Um, I mean, I do, but I don't know how to like put it on paper, if that makes sense. I'm not used to, well, I'm just not used to writing. So this is just like more practice on top of like writing 500 pages every day for the book, and then around 500 pages for like the lore, so 1,000 pages a day. Um, I like to also kind of just like reread and then write a little bit. So what I've been doing now, since I've been writing every day for like about a month, is that I stopped writing now, like continuing a story, and now I'm just kind of going back. And then once I finish those, my plan is to have Alexis read them, and we'll publish those as YouTube videos. And then I'll publish like another one that has my like thoughts on it, and like what I would want to change, or questions about that chapter, things that I need to make sure that are like closed or bridged up or whatever, or like plot threads that need to be addressed at a later point. So I need to do that. Those are my like two things that I want to kind of do for YouTube, for the book. essentially. So have her narrate it. That's one video, and then have another video of me kind of critiquing or reacting to. I might just have that as like the start of certain of So I'm planning on doing this like live stream reacting where I'm like researching on Sundays, every Sunday, like right now. And then maybe the beginning of those live streams are gonna be me critiquing like at least the front or the video that came that week, and then I'll like critique it. And then get like, get my notes and questions out. So when I rewatch these research videos, um, I'll have those to also kind of review the chapter again. Maybe I'll like think of something up. But besides that, kind of go back on what I'm using the Naga for. Once I think I release like chapter two, so they do these thing like some of the main characters are like the entanglers. I'm gonna change the name of the entanglers eventually. Like I have humans and I have Adams, Adam, Adams, like kind of akin to like Adam, akin to this thing called like a Madhya or a Madhya. It's like Sanskrit, and those are like the happies. They're essentially like what fills heaven in a lot of like biblical esque stories, right? Like mythos. They always fill the world that's inhabited by like the god with half humans and hybrids of animals and all that. It's very prevalent in a lot of mythos where there is some sort of utopia where all these creatures coexist. Um, so that's kind of like what the world is going to be. But one of the main antagonists or the entanglers all they have like a pure blood type of thing where they all come from the same lineage, and no one really has deviated at all from that lineage. And the people that have deviated from that lineage are, like dead or whatever. Or maybe, they found a hiding spot. I haven't decided yet. But the Nagas are like snake people, right? And the entanglers are like the high nobles, the ones that are like doing a lot of infighting are from that lineage. And I haven't written what exactly, how they started or what they do, how they look, what's going on with all their politics, what are the different nations, um, how have they stayed in power for so long. But eventually we'll cross those bridges we get there, because then we'll start kind of have to learn about medieval politics, um, politics now, war strategies, and all that jazz. But for now, we're really um, catering more so on learning about expanding the background universe, since I'm already starting the journey that I want to write. So I just want to learn more about other mythos and see what would make sense to incorporate into this new universe that we're creating. But sorry, yeah, and I just like the Naga, because like I first kind of encountered the Nagas in World of Warcraft. Well, if there was one in Ragnarok Online, I can't remember. Well, there was Isis in Ragnarok Online, which was like this big-breasted, like half snake Egyptian girl that you like have to fight. She's like a mini boss in Ragnarok Online. So I guess that's like one of the first instances of like seeing a Naga. Besides that, I don't think there were Nagas in like Doraemon or anything that was like seen earlier, which would be like anime. There might have been. Well, I guess there's Nagas in Dragon Ball Z, right? Like Cell is kind of a Naga himself. He has a tail, he has the reptilian thing going on for him. But I don't know if there's any like other versions of a Naga in Dragon Ball Z. I think that's like the earliest. Doraemon would definitely be the earliest, but anime or like frame of reference that I could think of. And then like a close would be like Yu Yu Hakusho or something. But I can't think of like any Nagas. It's been a while, but I know that Cell is basically
The upper body of a human and the lower body of a serpent. They are
really
associated with
sweet.
water, often depicted as serpentine
they're
beings,
just cool
with the upper
characters.
body of a human and the lower body of a
Shout out to
serpent.
Isis.
They are associated with water, particularly rivers,
not too
lakes,
bad.
and the primordial ocean.
The big boob.
Naga are believed to possess great wisdom, power, and supernatural abilities. They can take on both benevolent and malevolent forms, and are often revered as protectors of sacred places and treasures. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, Naga are considered a divine race with their own kingdoms and are often depicted as guardians or companions of deities. Manananggal. The Manananggal is a monster from Filipino folklore, which is depicted as a female creature with the ability to detach its upper torso from its lower body. In its monstrous form, the Manananggal sprouts large bat-like wings and elongated sharp claws. It is known for its preference to prey on pregnant women and its craving for the hearts and blood of fetuses.
Maybe the monsters
is often
change,
associated
like
with
the
darkness,
creatures
fear, and
during
nightmarish
Soulfall.
tales. It is vulnerable to garlic, salt, and sunlight,
Like
and
they
its
just
lower
have
body
like a
must be kept
different
away from it
form.
to prevent
I
it
think
from
that would be
rejoining
sick.
and returning to human form. Oni. From Japanese mythology and folklore, the Oni is a type of supernatural creature often depicted as a fierce, horned demon. Oni are known for their monstrous appearance, with sharp fangs, wild hair, and coloured skin, typically red or blue. They are associated with evil, chaos, and the punishing of human misdeeds. Oni are often portrayed as large and powerful beings, wielding iron clubs or kanabos. They are believed to dwell in the underworld, but can also appear in the human realm to cause mischief or carry out acts of vengeance. Almas.
These are just demons.
Almas,
That's like
also
their
known as the Almasty, is a cryptid creature from Central Asian folklore,
base word for
particularly in the
demon.
regions of Mongolia and Tajikistan. It is described as a humanoid creature similar to a wild
Definitely
man
need a
or
Yeti
humanoid
like
creature, often covered in
companion
long, white,
eventually
sandy-coloured
in
hair.
this story.
Almas are believed
Like
to
a
inhabit
big thing
remote
in
mountainous
Tibet,
areas
like they
and are
just
known for their
kinda-
elusiveness.
You know, like
Sightings of Almas report that they
they
possess
live there.
great
They live in
strength and
nature.
agility.
You don't want to
They are
really
considered to be
mess with
shy and elusive, avoiding contact with humans. Tengu. From Japanese mythology and folklore, the Tengu is a legendary creature typically depicted as a humanoid with wings and a long nose. They are known for their martial skills and supernatural powers. Tengu are often associated with mountains and forests, where they act as protectors or tricksters. They are skilled in swordsmanship and are considered masters of the martial
moth
arts.
demon.
Tengu are sometimes depicted as bird-like creatures, representing their connection to the heavens. They are known for their intelligence, wisdom,
Really,
and
that's
their
like
penchant
AI.
for playing pranks on humans. Asaku. The creature known as Asaku originates from Mesopotamian mythology. Asaku is depicted as a malevolent demon or vampire-like creature. It is said to be an invisible being that attacks humans during the night, causing various illnesses and afflictions. Asaku is
Dude, I
believed to feed on the
just
blood of
made
life
a
force of its victim.
character. His name is Aetor, Aetor, right? And he works for like the queen of well, I call her the Sunya. So she's the Sunya of Gensai, and Aetor like works for her as like her retainer, like bodyguard. And he is like this hulking guy, and I just wrote in a really late. I think it was like the chapter I just wrote, or the chapter before that, like chapter 7 or something. He like disappears, right? He like walks away from the room because he has to go do something, and he's like this big guy, but suddenly he just like friggin' disappears. What if his happy
bringing them
this
harm
guy?
and misfortune? It is
I
often
haven't
associated
decided
with
if he's like an
disease and pestilence,
entangler or
and
an
protective
Adyam
rituals
yet.
were performed to ward off its malevolent influence.
Idham.
Ryu. From Japanese mythology and folklore, the Ryu is a mythical creature known as a dragon. It is typically depicted as a massive serpent-like creature with scales,
Humans and
claws,
atoms.
and the ability to
Just
fly.
pronounce it Adam.
Ryu are associated with water and are often revered as water deities. They possess great wisdom and are considered the guardians of rivers, lakes, and oceans. In Japanese culture, they are the symbol of power, strength, and good fortune. Ryu are believed to have the ability to control weather, and their appearance is often seen as an auspicious sign. Barong. Barong is a
Damn,
mythical
look at that-
creature from
look how
Balinese
sick that
mythology.
character is.
It is a lion-like creature and one of the most important figures in Balinese culture. Barong are often depicted as a large, benevolent creature with a lion's head, a long mane, and a muscular body covered in colourful traditional
You already
fabrics.
know I'm gonna make
It represents
Barong.
good and protects against evil spirits.
I'm
Barong
thinking
is
like
a central
one
character
of
in traditional
the
Balinese
Desert
dances,
King.
particularly the Barong dance, where he engages in a battle with the evil witch Rangda. It symbolises the eternal struggle between good and evil, and its dance performances are believed to bring blessings and purification to the community. Rangda. Rangda is a character from Balinese mythology, and is often depicted as an evil and fearsome witch or demon queen. She is the antagonist in the Balinese Barong dance, where she engages in battle with the Barong, a benevolent creature. Rangda is depicted with long hair, fangs, and bulging eyes, often adorned with a crown or headdress. She possesses supernatural powers and is associated with black magic and dark forces. Rangda is believed to represent chaos, destruction, and the embodiment of evil. Ushioni. Ushioni, also known as the Gyuki, is a creature from Japanese mythology and folklore. It is depicted as a fearsome yokai, a combination of a bull and a spider. Ushioni possesses a large bull-like head with sharp horns and a spider's body with multiple legs. It is often portrayed as a monstrous and aggressive creature that dwells in coastal areas or caves. Ushioni is known for its strength and ferocity, preying on humans and other animals. It is also associated with storms and rough seas, and its appearance is believed to be an omen of disaster. Longma. The Longma, also known as the dragon horse, is a mythical creature from Chinese mythology. It is
like a
depicted as a
Quillen.
hybrid creature with the head of a dragon and the body of a horse. The Longmer is known for its extraordinary speed and strength, being able to run as swiftly as a horse while also having the ability to fly like a dragon. It is considered a symbol of power, wisdom, and auspiciousness. According to legends, those who obtained the Longmer were believed to possess great fortune and success. The Longmer is often associated with imperial and divine connections, serving as a symbol of authority.
I'm pretty sure this is a Quillen, dude.
Kappa. In Japanese mythology and folklore,
Sunya
Kappa is a creature depicted as a humanoid with the features of a turtle. Kappas are known for living in bodies of water, such as rivers and ponds. They have a distinctive dish-like depression on the top of their heads filled with water, which grants them strength and vitality. Kappas are mischievous beings, known for playing pranks on humans and sometimes even drowning them. Lamassu. The Lamassu is a mythical creature from ancient Mesopotamian mythology. It is depicted as a protective deity with the body of a bull or a lion, wings of an eagle, and the head of a human. Lamassu statues were often placed at the entrances of palace and temples as guardians and symbols of divine protection. They were believed to possess both physical and spiritual strength, warding off evil spirits and offering blessings to those who approached. Gashadakuru. The Gashadakuru is a creature from Japanese mythology. It is a colossal skeletal yokai that takes the form of a giant skeleton, often depicted as a monstrous, towering figure. Gashadakuru are created from the accumulated bones of people who died from famine or war. They roam at night, haunting lonely places and attacking unsuspecting victims.
What the
The Gashadakuru emits a chilling, rattling sound as it moves, and its presence is said to bring fear and foreboding. It is nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons and can only be repelled by holy rituals or specific incantations. Zu.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Zu is a creature from ancient Mesopotamian mythology.
I just love
from
I love how certain folklore and certain like mythos just like have a way of synchronizing with each other. It's just absolutely impeccable. And it's definitely 100% because they all derive from like Hinduism and Buddhism and the Chinese mythos, who then join with the Mongolian mythos, and which derive from Buddhism and Hinduism, who then like overtake the whole Asian continent, and then it mixes it with the Japanese myth. Like, the fact that they intermingled and were able to not only progressively like make the mythos better, whoever's writing these bangers, but they drew back to previous and like captured mythos and combined them to really have a robust mythos that is it's together. It's like the first multiverse of its kind. And if you think about the European pantheons, the different variations of the European pantheons, they also do the same exact thing, because they all derive from the same kind of beginnings, which is like the animistic viewpoint of the lightning has power, the lightning has spirit, the lightning has a person. Like, the lightning is a person, lightning has emotions, lightning is Zeus, the lightning is Thor, the lightning is so and so and so forth. Same with African mythos. Same with you know South American and North American mythos, but then it's all somewhat similar, or all have like a base point, because at least from what I've gleaned from everything that I've seen, everything that's in my brain, is that it always derives from nature. And just from the viewpoint of someone that has never seen technology, or technology of our kind, seeing the raw and destructive power of nature, and the unrelenting force of nature, and the fact that you cannot negotiate with nature. There's nothing that you can do. Nature is like its indifference gives it that godlike status, because it just happens, right? To them at that time, nature just happens, and there's nothing you can do about it, which is everything. Nature checked off every single marker that you would have needed for a god at that point in time, due to the line of thinking, the line of reasoning. And then every other mythos was kind of derived from that, and it expanded and expanded and expanded locally. Now we have this. Now I'm really excited, because now we have like an international presence. Everyone's talking about like, well, why are there no more new mythos? But the mythos now that we have are all online, like the cicada shit. Like these are like online mythos, right? Things that are paradoxical, unsolved. Those are our mythos now. And we just need to figure out how to join our new mythos that we've created to these past ones. But as someone that doesn't really know much about the past mythos, the more I'm learning, the more I'm like seeing, like, oh my god, they're so connected, they're so cool, they tell such a cool story. Um, the more I learn about them, the more I'm like, man, well, why is no one really connected like our existing mythos with these old mythos? But then that could just be on my ignorance and not exploring this previously. And the more I explore this, the more I'll like see. And what I want to get to is get to like kind of the forefront of philosophy of these like mythos and these like abstract thoughts and sensations, and think about what's next. Because as someone that cannot go to space, that to explore, as someone that has nothing in the earth that I'd want to look like, I'm not going to go cave diving, right? I don't want to go to the center of the earth. There's really nothing for me to physically explore, right? Due to like my limitations. I would love to explore space and like go up there, but due to limitations, I can't do that. So, as someone that wants to explore, someone that's like exploring their inner workings and seeing how I work internally, I also want to, that as I'm doing that, I'm starting to realize like, oh, there's things that I can explore and write down that are in my brain that could come out as like a compelling story or a compelling project or something that I want to personally do, kind of like my own, my own journey or exploration that anyone can do. If that makes sense. It's an internal journey that anyone can do, just depending on like what do you want to find in that journey. And for me, that journey kind of encompasses learning about these folklores and these mythos, and learning about the folklores and mythos that we have now, that's being created now, and seeing how those combine and progress in the future. But then also thinking about um, how philosophy intertwined with all of these mythos, and how the philosophy was created because of these mythos, because of the questions they asked, because of like the fact that no one was answering these questions, because we just think like, yeah, these are stories. But there's so many redundancies and coincidences that you'd have to ask. Are these coincidences and redundancies because everyone is just stealing from each other, or is it because they're unanswered questions that we still need to answer as like as a collective whole? Or are these mythos and creation myths, or whatever the case is, are these thoughts that need to be pieced together to find what the future holds? And I know that just because it happened in the past doesn't mean correlation doesn't mean causation. We get it. Scientific dogmas, but what if at that moment some of the things in the past gonna there's only so much time. So what, would it not make sense to restart if there's infinite, if the probability of my brain being recreated or your brain being recreated in the emptiness and vastness of space is not 0%, and there's a possibility that that could happen for a split second. And like I mentioned, a split second is a very long time for a human comparative to the universe. um, then I would like to assume that if we are just a spark, that I would like to assume that there is something here that we're supposed to kind of answer with all these things that's left behind by our ancestors, that could direct us towards like a brighter future.
Sumerian and Akkadian
I know that
traditions.
had nothing to do
It
with
is
this, but
depicted as a divine
it's
bird,
just kind of
a
like my
lion-headed
thought
eagle.
process on
Zu is
why
associated
I'm
with the
learning
realm
about
of
all this
gods
and like
and
why
often
I'm writing.
considered a powerful and revered being. In some myths, Zu is said to have stolen the tablets of destiny, which granted supreme power to its possessor. This
Listen. One last thing. At the end of the day, the Bible is a philosophical book. It's not science fiction. It's not nonfiction. It's just not even labeled. You know, I'm just kidding. It's a philosophical book, and it's heralded by billions. Same with the Quran. Same with the Buddhist texts, Buddhist scriptures, the Hindu scriptures. Um, it's all philosophical, and it has moved, and it has it has moved individuals, has destroyed countries, and it has so much power. And there has to be a reason why these mythos move and inspire us to do the things that we do. And I think if we can harness these mythos to move and inspire people into a direction that favors the collective rather than seeing more kind of harm be done, then I think the onus is on every individual in the world to learn more about these mythos and find that one path, the Doctor Strange path that leads us to that ending.
This act led to conflicts among gods and heroes in their quest to retrieve the tablets. Zu represents both the awe-inspiring and potentially disruptive forces within the divine hierarchy. Tsukinoku. Tsukinoku is a mythical creature from Japanese folklore. It is described as a small and chubby snake-like creature with a unique set of characteristics. Tsukinoku is known for its ability to jump and roll in a manner similar to a hoop, allowing it to move quickly and efficiently. It is often depicted with a distinct bulge in the middle of its body. Tsukinoku is believed to possess supernatural powers, including the ability to speak human languages and bring good fortune to those who encounter it. Despite its elusive nature, it is considered a mischievous and harmless creature, inspiring both fear and fascination among the Japanese population. Butoijo. Butoijo, also known as the Green Ogre or Green Giant, is a creature from Indonesian folklore, particularly in the regions of Java and Bali. It is depicted as a tall, muscular humanoid figure with green skin and a fierce countenance. Butoijo is known for its immense strength and is often associated with destructive and chaotic behaviour. In some stories, it is depicted as a guardian of certain locations, or as a representation of nature's fury. Bakaneko. Bakaneko is a creature from Japanese folklore, specifically a type of yokai known as a ghost cat. It is believed to be a domestic cat that has undergone a supernatural transformation, gaining magical abilities and growing in size. Bakaneko are known for their shape-shifting abilities, often taking on human-like forms or assuming the appearance of ordinary cats. They are associated with mischief, possession, and vengeance. Bakaneko are said to possess the power to manipulate objects, speak human language, and even bring harm to humans. They are often portrayed as cunning and malevolent spirits, haunting households and seeking revenge for mistreatment or neglect. Kunpeng. Kunpeng is a legendary creature from Chinese mythology and Daoist cosmology. It is often depicted as a gigantic mythical bird, sometimes with the head of a dragon and the body of a fish. Kunpeng is considered a symbol of transformation and spiritual transcendence. According to legends, like Kunpeng emerged from the primal chaos and ascended to the heavens, representing the transformation of matter into spirit. It is associated with the concept of unity and the harmonious
should they
balance
only
between
have one
earthly and
leg like the
celestial realms.
Nagas? That would make more sense of why they can jump and stuff.
Namazu is a creature from Japanese mythology and folklore. It is depicted as a giant catfish that lives in the depths of the earth, specifically in the subterranean realm. According to legend, Namazu is responsible for causing earthquakes. It is believed that when Namazu thrashes about, it causes the earth to shake violently, resulting in seismic activity. However, Namazu is kept in check by the god Kashima, who uses a stone or a ritual to suppress the creature and prevent it from causing widespread destruction. Killin. Killin, also known as the Chinese unicorn, is a mythical creature from Chinese mythology. It is often depicted as a composite creature, with the body of a deer or horse, the tail of an ox, and scales or a single horn on its head. Killin is associated with auspiciousness, good fortune, and benevolence.
Dude, the auspicious friggin' god animals. So the Gensai's auspicious animal is the Killin. This guy. Excuse me. And we're not gonna like Ho-Oh, we're not gonna encounter this fool for a while. But I have kind of mentioned. I think I'm just gonna keep their auspicious names to kind of mix that mythos in there. But I might also change it. I think the Killin's name is also just kind of sick, I mean, it's foreign enough to most of the Western audience that I feel like it's fine to not change, because we also, like I said, we want to add new mythos, but also keep some of the old mythos in here to kind of incorporate ourselves into this Asian mythos, right? Gives it authority, essentially.
Believed to appear during times of peace and prosperity, or to herald the birth or reign of a wise and just ruler. Killin is considered a gentle and noble creature, representing harmony, righteousness, and the balance between yin and yang.
After it.
Garuda. Garuda.
Look, it's a Garuda. So I definitely need to change
it is often depicted as a large
one of
bird-like
the
creature,
animals'
the body of a
names.
human and the wings, beak,
Probably
and
just
talons of an eagle.
change it to
Garuda
Ebik, and then the
considered king of
Garuda
all
is
birds and serves as the mount of the Hindu god Vishnu. It is a symbol of power, speed, and protection. Garuda is revered for its strength and is believed to have the ability to travel between the heavens and the earth.
Is also an auspicious
In
name.
Hindu mythology, Garuda is depicted as an enemy of snakes and is often portrayed subduing or fighting against the serpent demon Naga. Garuda is
Dude,
associated with divine virtues and is regarded as a god.
Dude, this is what I'm talking about. Like, so, like I said, the royals are part of the Naga, and right now, our Iris, our main character Iris, she is battling these creatures that I called Garudas, because looking into the Buddhism mythos. So I need to change that into the Ebek, which is what we saw earlier. So it's like a Gruhana, which is like an egg that turns, once it's cracked, it eats enough, it turns into the Ebek. And then I think the rare form should be the Garuda, or it could be like her summon or someone's summon, because then they're gonna be battling the royal people, the royal blood people, the Nagas. Maybe we should just call them the Guineas, dude. The Genie is like my favorite character from Harry Potter, just because of like how outrageous Voldemort uses Nagini. Nagini, get the old mugger caretaker for me. So the Nagas are the bad people. It's just like the synchronicity of the religion is just amazing.
Guardian against evil and a
This
symbol
makes
of
a compelling
liberation and
story, dude.
enlightenment. Jinn. Jinn, also known as jinn or genies, are supernatural beings from Islamic mythology and folklore. They are often depicted as powerful spirits that possess free will and
Look at
exist
that
in a
AI
realm
has
parallel to
hand
humans.
all bent and shit.
Jinn can manifest in various forms.
So
including human.
jinns are sick. So there's this game, um, I forget what it's called, but it was like an old Game Boy game, and it's like the sun, and they summon the jinns, and that's like where one of the ideas, and it's also like Sonic having chows. I think chows were like the greatest inventions that they just didn't expand on. Having that companion, right now it's they're Gorathas or like their pets, but once they get out of this initial island and kind of start their actual journey, that's when we'll introduce um these guides, essentially these like the jinns who are gonna guide them, and these the jinns will kind of evolve with them, kind of akin to, of course, like JoJo, where they have stands, or in Bleach, they have their Sanpakto, they can talk to them, that's their guide. In Shaman King, they have their spirits, their guide. Um, I'm sure there's others where they have some kind of guide that like talk to them, but it's also like their weapon. So we'll we'll,
Animals,
we'll see
or
how
even
that
rituals.
evolves into,
They are
because
believed to
that
be
means
created from
more
smoke and fire.
characters to voice and
Jinn are
juggle,
considered sentient beings
which
with their
is
own desires,
one of the things
emotions,
we're going to
and
avoid.
abilities.
We'll see
While
later
some
with the
jinn
Game
are
of
seen as
Thrones.
benevolent and helpful, others are portrayed as mischievous or malevolent, capable of granting wishes or causing harm. Jinn play a significant role in Arabian Nights tales and are generally ingrained in Islamic culture and belief. Ghoul. From Arabian and Islamic folklore, the ghoul is a malevolent creature known for its association with graveyards and desolate places. Depicted as a shapeshifter, the ghoul can assume the form of animals or humans to deceive its victims. It feeds on the flesh of the deceased or unsuspecting travellers. Ghouls possess supernatural strength and stealth, often associated with black magic and necromancy. They are infamous for their ability to raise the dead and their relentless pursuit of their prey. Manticore. The manticore is a creature from Persian and Greek mythology. It is depicted as a legendary beast with the body of a lion, the head of a human, or sometimes a combination of human and lion features, and a tail ending in a cluster of deadly spines or barbs. The manticore is known for its ferocity and predatory nature. It is said to possess immense strength and speed, capable of overtaking and devouring its prey with ease. In some versions of the myth, the manticore is also said to have a trumpet-like voice. It is often associated with themes of danger and fear, and tales of encounters with the manticore serve as cautionary stories of the perils of the unknown. Yeti. From Himalayan folklore, the Yeti, or abominable snowman, is a creature depicted as a large, ape-like being that inhabits the snowy mountains. It is known for its robust and hairy body, often standing on 2 feet. Yeti sightings have fueled speculation that it is actually an unidentified primate species. Although elusive, the Yeti has become an iconic figure symbolizing the unexplored wilderness of the Himalayas. Scientific evidence for its existence remains inconclusive. Baku. Baku is a creature from Japanese and Chinese folklore. In Japanese mythology, the Baku is known as a dream-eating spirit. It is depicted as a mythical creature with the body of a bear, the head of an elephant, the eyes of a rhinoceros, and the tail of an ox. Baku is believed to devour nightmares, protecting people from bad dreams. However, it is said that if one calls upon the Baku too much, it may devour good dreams as well. The Baku is often invoked as a protective charm against nightmares and is considered a benevolent
Like
and
a rhino? Rhino elephant?
Rakshasa. Rakshasa is a creature from Hindu mythology and folklore. In Hinduism, Rakshasas are powerful and malevolent beings. They are depicted as demonic entities with shape-shifting abilities. Rakshasas are often described as having monstrous forms with fierce features, sharp fangs, and claws. They are known for their strength, cunningness, and supernatural powers. In mythology, Rakshasas are depicted as enemies of gods and humans, causing harm, torment, and disruption. Aswang. The Aswang is a monster from Filipino folklore. It is a supernatural being associated with various malevolent traits. The Aswang is often depicted as a shapeshifter, capable of transforming into different forms.
So many shapeshifters in folklore.
Or an attractive woman. It preys on humans, particularly targeting pregnant women and children. It is known for its ability to fly, its sharp fangs, and its long proboscis-like tongue used to suck the blood or internal organs of its victims. Dokebi. Dokebi, also known as Korean goblins, are mythical creatures from Korean folklore. They are typically depicted as mischievous and supernatural beings with a fondness for playing tricks on humans. Dokebi often appear as elderly men wearing traditional Korean hats and carrying magic clubs. They possess magical powers, including the ability to create fire,
we gotta add those
change their
guys.
appearance, and summon objects.
Be
Dokebi are
a
associated
race
with places
right
such
there.
as bridges, forests, and crossroads. They are known for their love of games, riddles, and challenges. In some stories, Dokebi can grant wishes or bestow wealth upon those who can outsmart them or fulfill their requests. Jiangshi. Jiangshi is a creature from Chinese mythology and folklore. Depicted as a reanimated corpse, Jiangshi are known as hopping vampires. They have stiff movements due to rigor mortis and hop with their arms outstretched. Jiangshi wear Qing dynasty clothing and have pale skin, long white hair, and paper talismans on their foreheads to control them. Sensitive to life force, or qi, they hop to move and feed on the qi of the living, often by sucking it through their victims' mouths.
Huh?
Efreet. The Efreet, from Arabian folklore, are formidable
Okay.
jinn made of smokeless fire. These powerful beings possess great strength, intelligence, and shape-shifting abilities. Often associated with fire and the desert, Efreet are known for their malevolence and cunning nature. While capable of granting wishes, they often twist them to bring harm. Efreet embody pride and arrogance, seeking dominion over humans. In tales, they may be imprisoned or enslaved, reflecting their complex relationships with mortals. Simurgh. The Simurgh is a mythical creature from Persian mythology. It is often depicted as a large and benevolent bird with the head of a dog,
Yo,
the
I
wings of
haven't
an
looked
eagle,
into
the tail of a
Persian
peacock, and the
mythology.
claws of a lion. The Simurgh is associated with wisdom, compassion, and healing. It is said to possess vast knowledge and is often regarded as a guardian and protector of the world. In Persian literature, the Simurgh is depicted as a
dog,
wise counselor
eagle,
and a guide for heroes on
a
their quests.
deagle.
It is believed that the feathers of the Simurgh have healing and transformative properties. The Simurgh symbolizes renewal, transformation, and the union of the
Oh, it looks like
spiritual
the
and material
dragon from
realms.
Neverending Story.
Qianlong. Qianlong, also known as Celestial Dragon, is a creature from Chinese mythology. It is depicted as a divine and majestic dragon with a serpentine body, often adorned with celestial patterns and features. Qianlong is associated with the heavens and is believed to possess tremendous power and wisdom. It is seen as a benevolent and auspicious creature.
We could have
symbolizing
a
good
dragon
fortune,
to shout out
protection, and harmony
Toriyama.
between
Shout out
heaven and earth.
Toriyama. Rest in peace.
Qianlong is often depicted as a celestial guardian, capable of controlling the weather, bringing rain and prosperity. It is a revered figure in Chinese culture, representing celestial authority and divine blessings. Pizhu, also known as Piyao or Qianlu, is a mythical creature from Chinese mythology. It is depicted as a powerful and protective creature, resembling a winged lion or a hybrid of a lion and a dragon. Pizhu is believed to have a voracious appetite for wealth and treasures, and it is considered
Maybe
a
just
symbol of wealth
mixing
and
these
fortune.
animals with
It
dragons.
is often depicted with a single horn, upward
What
pointing ears,
if
and a
lion
muscular body. Pizhu
scales?
is associated with Feng Shui and is believed to have the ability to attract and safeguard wealth and prosperity. It is commonly seen in various forms of Chinese art, jewelry, and sculptures, serving as a popular talisman for attracting wealth and warding off
What
evil
if
spirits.
bird
Canary. Canary is a creature from Hindu, Buddhist, and Southeast Asian mythology. It is often depicted as
Bird
half bird and
plus
half human being,
scales
typically
equals
with the upper body of a
chicken?
woman and the lower body of a bird. Canaries are known for their exceptional beauty, grace, and melodious singing voices. They are associated with music, dance,
Yeah, I'm like
and
really
artistic talents.
conflicted on
Canaries
like
are often depicted as
creating
celestial beings
other
who reside in the
races
heavens.
than the
They consider
three.
symbols of love, harmony, and fertility.
Because
In some legends,
feel like
they are
that's a
portrayed as
lot.
benevolent and compassionate
I
beings,
could
offering
try.
blessings and protection
Maybe
to
the more
those
she
in
explores,
captivity.
the more like
Tianak.
it
Tianak is a creature from
necessitates to
Filipino
get. That is
particularly with
terrifying.
Filipino mythology.
A baby
It is
bat.
depicted as a malevolent creature that takes the form of an
You
innocent
think I
infant
find this
or
scary
child.
because it's a
Tianak
Filipino
is said to be the
folklore?
spirit of an aborted fetus or a child who died before being baptized.
Yeah,
Unsuspecting individuals
terrified.
are crying like a baby,
That is
and then
so
reveals its true
scary, though.
monstrous form. Tianak is known for its
This
sharp
is
fangs,
terrifying.
claws,
That's
and
two
ability to fly.
tails.
It preys on humans, particularly those who are lost or vulnerable. The legend of the Tianak serves as a cautionary tale and highlights the consequences of neglect
Yeah,
or harm.
they definitely
Children.
saw their baby and they're like, oh my god,
Tigbalang.
a demon.
The Tigbalang is a creature found in Philippine folklore. It is often
A-
depicted as a
a
tall,
man
human
horse?
creature with the head and hooves of a
No
horse.
way.
The Tigbalang is known for its mischievous and trickster
Looks like a
nature.
horse
It is
tree.
said to inhabit forests,
That's like
mountains, and
it's
other
the
remote areas.
freaking Lord
Tigbalang is
Voldemort yet
believed to have the
again
ability to
in the
shape-shift
Dark
and is known for
Forest
playing pranks
when
on
he's
travelers
eating on
or leading them
unicorns.
astray. The tikbalang is deeply ingrained in Philippine folklore and serves as a cautionary figure, emphasizing the importance of respect for nature and proper conduct when venturing into the wilderness.
That's kind of sick.
Our exploration of
Creating
Asian
like
folklore's
a
creatures and
building
monsters.
on a creature that's like dormant, and then the creature becoming alive, and you have to like kill the creature, which then rots the foundation of your whole village, would be so funny. That's gonna be in the story. This is a good one. All right, now we're gonna learn about the Book of the Dead. Are they fighting? And then we'll go into the downfall of Game of Thrones, and then that one. This one's by Eric Dubay. The other one was by Mythos, Creatures, Asian Folklore, Egyptian, Tibet. So I want to learn about the Tibetan Book of the Dead because it's called the Bardo Todal, and or something like that. And it's gonna be like a foundational piece on how these people like it's gonna be what the ceremony is based off of. So in the book, the initial like chapters with this girl named Alag, who's she's like the next Sunya. They call her the Munya. Anyone that's like a princess are called Munya in these kingdoms, and the queen is called the Sunya. And she needs to like learn the ways of this book essentially. I don't know what the book's gonna be called, but it's just gonna be a bunch of rituals that she needs to perform till she becomes the Sunya. And we need to learn how those rituals usually work. Are they, always based off religion, or are some, just random context, a random book that they find? Um, how well is it integrated into society, in their society? If this is going to be Egyptian, so it's going to be very integrated, but there are certain cases where um like the Tibetan book where it's sec, right? It's like per sec. Maybe these guys are in the northern mountains of Tibet and they have their own monastery that has built their own sect, and they have a variation or recollection like oriation, because a lot of the Tibetan and monk knowledge is usually done via scrolls or writing or oration, storytelling, hymns, incantations, and it's just passed on through that way. And sometimes in these different sects, they'll have the same Book of the Dead, but other times their Book of the Dead or whatever, you know, variation of a certain book, certain tome that they delegate to each other through oration, it varies throughout each sect, right? And it only applies to that sect, but of course they want it to apply to everything. So I could like write it like that to where it only applies to the city of Gensai and it's like their specific cultural thing. But then that means that I would need to create um, variation on different cultures and create it that way, or you could have kind of a universal one or a variation of both of those combined.
Tibetan
We'll
books of
see.
the dead
But
are
the
two
thing is, we
ancient
just
and
need to learn
enlightening
more.
tomes revealing the complex afterlife beliefs of two fascinating religions. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, also known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day, originally was not a book at all, but rather a collection of hieroglyphics carved or painted on pyramid walls. The oldest known version is estimated over 5,000 years old and was found in the tomb of a king buried in Abydos. During Egypt's mid-dynasty.
See what I'm talking about? Like the first variations were just scriptures and runes and hieroglyphs that they found on these pillars that they combined, that said, that had a specific structure that came out to a version of the Book of the Dead. And then they found a different version in his dude's tomb. But then at the same time, those ones that they were finding could just be snippets of an overall narrative, that specific sector of Egypt, and then the ones in different pillars could be a different narrative for the overall. There's going to be tons and tons of hieroglyphs that we're just never going to be able to read because of time and decay, and it could just be telling incomplete stories. But then that completes it in that specific section, but then us as scholars or whatever, we take that information and see links that these kind of correlate to each other. These relate. These mention or say or talk about the same topics, and then we combine them and create our own version of like a Book of the Dead. There's just so many ways.
Dynasties, the Book of the Dead was more often inscribed into sarcophaguses
What I mean
than
by
on pyramid walls, and in later dynasties, usually written on papyrus scrolls buried inside the coffin. The Egyptians believed that after physical death, our material body, known as the Kat, would produce an etheric double body known as the Ka. In the afterlife state, inhabiting our new etheric body, we wander about the earth plane at will for a period of time. The recently deceased is always identified with the god Osiris, and frequently called by the god's name. Eventually, the deceased is brought to judgment, which is the main and most important feature of the Egyptian afterlife experience. Present at the judgment are several gods of the Egyptian pantheon, such as the ibis-headed Thoth, the dog-headed Anubis, and the crocodile-headed Ammit, devourer of the dead. At the center of the scene stand the scales of justice, where Anubis weighs the heart of the recently deceased on one side, balanced with a single feather on the other side, known as the feather of truth. Thoth, the scribe, stands to the side recording the results, while Ammit, the devourer of the dead, waits under the scale to perform his task. If the heart weighs equal to or less than the feather, the deceased is said to be pure and may continue their journey towards immortality. However, if the heart outweighs the truth feather, it was deemed impure, and Ammit would immediately devour their heart, leaving them without a soul. To prepare for this afterlife judgment, the Egyptian Book of the Dead recommends the recitation of 42 negative confessions of specific sins they did not commit during their lifetime, one for each of the 42 gods present in the Hall of Osiris. By reading what ancient Egyptians considered sinful, it is clear they abhorred abuse, adultery, promiscuity.
Huh? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing with the writing. So it's like still a draft, but might as well just like get it out there. I read so many places like that say like don't put your stuff online or you never get published. I was like, well, if you just want to write, what if you just want to write, you know?
Cheating, thievery, fraud, violence, and murder. A pious
Oh,
Egyptian endeavored to not
nice.
curse the gods, not speak haughtily, not judge hastily, and not stir up strife. They sought to give food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, clothes to the naked, and boats to shipwrecked mariners. The 42 negative confessions recited during judgment, such as, I have not stolen, would later appear in Christianity's 10 Commandments, such as, Thou shalt not steal. The Egyptian Book of the Dead states, I have not committed sin. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men and women. I have not stolen grain. I have not purloined offerings. I have not stolen the property of God. I have not uttered lies. I have not carried away food. I have not uttered curses. I have not committed adultery. I have not lain with men. I have made none to weep. I have not eaten the heart. I have not attacked any man. I am not a man of deceit. I have not stolen cultivated land. I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not slandered any man.
So many rules,
I have not been
bro.
angry
What
without
the
just
heck?
cause. I have not debauched the wife of any man. I have not polluted myself. I have terrorized none. I have not transgressed the law. I have not been wroth. I have not shut my ears to the words of truth. I have not blasphemed. I am not a man of violence. I have not been a stirrer-up of strife. I have not acted with undue haste. I have not pried into matters. I have not multiplied my words in speaking. I have wronged none. I have done no evil. I have not worked witchcraft against the king. I have never stopped the flow of water. I have never raised my voice. I have not cursed God. I have
Never
not acted
raised
with
my
arrogance.
voice, dude.
I have not stolen the bread of the gods. I have not carried away the kenfu cakes from the spirits of the dead. I have not snatched away the bread of a child, nor treated with contempt the god of my city. I have not slain the cattle belonging to the god. I have not
I've
repulsed
definitely
God in his
stolen bread
manifestations.
and candy
I am
from my
pure.
children, though.
I am pure. I am pure.
Not good.
The judgment and afterlife journey described in the Egyptian Book of the Dead paints a psychedelic picture of their mysterious religion,
Not random
and actually
children,
shares
my
many
kids.
similarities with Tibetan Buddhism and their Book of the Dead, written thousands of years later.
Snatching stuff from
The Tibetan
kids.
Book of the Dead, also known as the Liberation Through Hearing during the Intermediate State, was first orally preserved, then eventually.
So the Tibetan Book of the Dead translates. So the Sanskrit is Bardo Todal, which was what I was gonna name the third book, like 30 years from now. And it translates to the liberation of hearing, or what is it? What do you say? It was crazy. I was like, what does that mean?
Thousands of years later. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, also known as the Liberation Through Hearing during the Intermediate State, was first.
Yeah, the liberation through hearing during the intermediate state, which is crazy, which means that your soul will be free when you are at a liminal state, right? Liminal is the space between two spaces. The liminal, right? Liminality, which is like incorporated already at the beginning of the book. And you can't reach Bardo or like reincarnation unless you like listen to all these incantations. That's how like this works.
Orally preserved, then
Supposedly,
eventually written down in the 8th century.
It's how it's like
Both the
when
Egyptian
I first
and
read
Tibetan
it.
books of the dead were afterlife guides meant to be whispered into the ear of the dying and deceased by priests, monks, or close family members. They both speak of an etheric body that survives physical death and freely travels the earth plane until eventually being brought to judgment for all sins committed during their lifetimes. The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls this etheric double the thought body of propensities, and gives very specific details about what to expect starting from the moment of physical death, ending in the eventual reincarnation into a new physical body. Dr. Carl Jung wrote, "The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a book of instructions of the dead and dying. Like the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it is meant to be a guide for the dead man during the period of his bardo existence, symbolically described as an intermediate state of 49 days duration between death and rebirth. The text falls into 3 parts. The first part describes the psychic happenings at the moment of death. The second part deals with the dream state, which supervenes immediately after death, and with what are called karmic illusions. The third part concerns the onset of the birth instinct and of prenatal events. It is characteristic that supreme insight and illumination, and hence the greatest possibility of attaining liberation, are vouchsafed during the actual process of dying. Soon afterward, the illusions begin, which lead eventually to reincarnation, the illuminative lights growing ever fainter and more multifarious."
So the thought process, this is just from my understanding, the thought process in Bardo Todar is that you will, right when you're dying, you'll enter the liminal state, and your family or someone very close to you can whisper the incantations plus whisper your deeds, right? Your deeds throughout, whisper them, and then while you're in that liminal state, you're going to feel essentially like another life while hearing what you've been doing in a different life. And while you're living that life in the liminal state, you'll go through the whole thing, and then at the very end of it, once they're done with their, with their incantations of your previous life, and your life is going to end at the exact same time, right? And once that happens, and you're at the end of your liminal state, you're going to get the option of, do you want to continue your liminal life, or do you want to come back to your previous life? So that's why it's always getting, it's always like being spoken, and then you have the choice of between the two. But what didn't really make much sense to me is, would you not just have the choice again once you go through an avenue? Once you go through, if you say you want to live through the liminality, the liminal state, at the end of your liminal state, let's say you like keep progressing, like maybe that wasn't truly the end, right? You're going to continue on either side. So you continue through your liminal state. Once you get to the end, you're going to have 2 more options, bro. Right? Or you die, right? You die, and then you're going to go through another liminal state, and then you'll have to choose between the previous liminal state and your new liminal state. But then if you choose the other one, it kind of just ends, right? If you reincarnate, you get to finish your unfinished business or whatever you were reincarnated for. The question is, do you get another liminal state, or do you just die? Why would you keep reincarnating, right? Why are these people reincarnating you at that point? It doesn't, I don't know.
And the visions more and more terrifying. This descent illustrates the estrangement of consciousness from the liberating truth as it approaches nearer and nearer to physical rebirth. The purpose of the instruction is to fix the attention of the dead man at each successive stage of delusion and entanglement on the ever-present possibility of liberation, and to explain to him the nature of his visions.
But do you get liberated,
this intermediary
as in you
stage
don't
between death and
reincarnate?
rebirth is known as
You just
bardo,
die?
which symbolically lasts for 49, 7 times 7, days before the deceased is reincarnated. The ideal in Buddhism, however, and the guidance of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is not to reincarnate here at all, but rather to release all desires and attachments to the material world in order to reach a blissful state called nirvana, at one with the source. This would be considered a perfect death, rarely achieved, and generally requiring hundreds or thousands of reincarnations.
But like the whole point, unless, all right, so the way it works is that someone has to say these hymns to you. Someone has to say these hymns. Someone has to perform the ritual, and then you get the option of liminality in the Book of the Dead. But it doesn't make sense on how you could achieve non-wants or nirvana through the Book of the Dead if, because you're rejecting death, but you're not rejecting life. You're clinging on to life, so how can you ever join that? Say, I feel like the ending of like let's say that you cling to life, you use the Book of the Dead, and that shows that you are not ready for nirvana. Then you live in liminality and you get back to the end where you can cling to life again, right? Going back to not being ready for nirvana, or you end liminality without choosing, or that's your choice. I just want to end liminality. I don't even want to like reincarnate. Like let me die. Then that is that you reaching nirvana? That you're dead? I don't know. Very confusing stuff.
Incarnations before succeeding. Buddhists believe a level of karmic purity and meditative awareness must be diligently practiced, usually over many lifetimes, before reaching nirvana. Otherwise, shortly after physical death, a series of hallucinatory karmic illusions will beckon their attention and drag them down into increasingly darker delusions, resulting in progressively worse rebirths. Dr. Carl Jung wrote, "At any rate, it is unexpectedly original, if nothing else, to find the after-death state, of which our religious imagination has formed the most grandiose conceptions, painted in lurid colors as a terrifying dream state of a progressively degenerative character. The supreme vision comes not at the end of the bardo, but right at the beginning, in the moment of death."
So it makes sense if, um, you know, as you're dying, that last like 6 minutes of your brain being active, or whatever the amount of time is, it makes sense that you're going through world states, and as you die in each world state, which is your overall brain decaying, that it gets shorter and worse because you're losing cognitive functions, and you're losing the ability to create these great escapes because you're using the rest of the remaining energy of your brain. So let's say that you live for 6 minutes, and each minute is 100 lifespans that you're living through, and it just, you know, like fractal rabbits all the way down. And but that regardless, at some point you're gonna expand all of your energy, just like entropy in our universe here. You're gonna run out of heat, and inability to make your remaining time as grand as possible. So the story gets colder and colder, which we have accustomed to it getting worse and worse and more closer to that scary sensation that they're
What
communicating
happens
on about.
afterward is an
So
ever-deepening
it,
descent
it
into
literally could
delusion
just
and
be talking about
obscuration,
that last 6
down to the
minutes of
ultimate
your life.
degradation. The
All this
spiritual
is
climax is reached at the moment when life ends. Human life, therefore, is the vehicle of the highest perfection it is possible to attain. It alone generates the karma that makes it possible for the dead man to abide in the perpetual light of the voidness without clinging to any object, and thus to rest on the hub of the wheel of rebirth, freed from all illusion of genesis and decay. The Tibetan Book of the Dead emphasizes the importance of maintaining at the moment of physical death a meditative, undisturbed, pure state of consciousness, free from desires and attachments to the material world. Spiritual adepts, able to transcend the trap of reincarnation, are promised not to experience the devolution of delusion into hallucinatory dream states, but to instead, quote, be set face to face with the fundamental clear light, and without any intermediate state, they will obtain the unbored Dharmakaya by the great perpendicular path. A parallel teaching to this is found in the Hindu Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna that one attaineth whatever state of being one thinketh about at the last, when relinquishing the body, being ever absorbed in the thought thereof. If the deceased is unable to maintain meditation, clings to material attachments and desires, or has accrued too much negative karma, they will be thrust into a series of dreamlike illusions. The Tibetan Book of the Dead states, however,
You know what I think is funny? The meditation is all about like essentially sleeping without fully sleeping, right? And having as calm as possible, not letting thought process in your brain and just letting it flow. until you reach a blank flow state, where you're kind of just digesting the meditation, and that is what's supposed to progress you to enlightenment. And each human does this just by sleeping. And I think that's hilarious, and I think that's why we get closer and closer to reaching. Or is that like sleep is such a phenomenal thing that really expands on your creativity, your your thought process, how you digest information, how your body functions, how well you digest physical objects, mainly food, hopefully. Yeah, people eating the what are those my bad addictions or whatever. What is that show?
That these illusions all emanate directly from our own minds and are a result of our own beliefs, preconceptions, and other subconscious factors. The bardos each person experiences are based on their own unique mental content. So a Buddhist would likely see visions of Buddha and the deities in their pantheon. A Christian would see Jesus and the Christian heaven. And a Viking would see the Norse gods and Valhalla.
That's why I think
Sir
it's
John
important
Woodruff
to
wrote,
write your own
"The Bible
story.
of the Christian."
To write your own book, because when you die, more than likely your brain is going to be filled with your stories, and you can just live in your stories for a little bit, because you know you're only going to have 6 minutes, and at least those 6 minutes could last your entire story that you write, right? Until you like actually get snuffed out here by the big god.
Christians, like the Quran of the Muslims, never seems to
Big
consider
God's
that the
agenda.
spiritual experiences in the form of hallucinatory visions by prophet
Non-believers
or devotee
don't
recorded
die.
therein may, in the last analysis, not the light of the wisdom of the Dharmadhatu. Put thy faith in it, believe in it firmly, and pray unto it. Be not fond of the dull white light of the devas. Be not attached to it, be not weak. If thou be attached to it, thou wilt wander in the abodes of the devas and be drawn into the whirl of the 6 lokas. That is an interruption to obstruct thee on the path of liberation. Look not at it. Look at the bright blue
Yeah,
light
like
in
the
deep
lotus
faith.
fields.
For the next 7 days, the recently deceased is tempted by 7 different colored lights emanating from 7 peaceful
not the
deities,
Lopez
each
field.
representing one of the 7 chakras
All
and
the
one of the
Mario
7 vices,
Lopez and
including
all
anger,
the
pride, and jealousy. Depending on the accumulated karma of the recently
all the
deceased,
George
they will feel
Lopezes.
irresistibly
It's
drawn
just
towards
a
the
field
deity
of
that
them.
represents their vice. The Book of the Dead insists to
That'd be
remain
so
impartial
funny.
and unattached to each emotion as it passes, or else be thrust and reincarnated into that world. For example, for those trapped by the light of jealousy, it says, "A light of dull green color from the Asura Loka, produced from the cause of the feeling of jealousy, coming side by side with the wisdom rays, will shine upon thee. Meditate upon it with impartiality, with neither repulsion nor attraction. Be not fond of it. If thou art of low mental capacity, be not fond of it. Fear it not. Be not fond of that dull green light of the Asura Loka. That is the karmic path of acquired intense jealousy, which hath come to receive thee. If thou art attracted by it, thou wilt fall into the Asura Loka, and have to engage in unbearable miseries of quarreling and warfare. If we are attracted to the impure lights of these worlds, it says we will assume a body there and lose our opportunity to be emancipated from the cycle of suffering. Each successive light, however, guarantees progressively worse rebirths, so the longer we remain lost in these karmic illusions, the more suffering we will have to endure. After the first days, the next 7 days are controlled by 7 wrathful deities. The Book of the Dead says these are actually the same 7 deities, but with a changed aspect, so that they will not resemble themselves, and now they will use negative rather than positive reinforcement to lure us. Again, we are reminded, though, not to fear or be in awe of these gods, because they are simply embodiments of our own intellect, aspects of our own consciousness. O nobly born, listen undistractedly. Not having been able to recognize when the peaceful deities shone upon thee in the bardo above, thou hast come wandering thus far. Now on the 8th day, the blood-drinking wrathful deities will come to shine. Act so as to recognize them without being distracted. After 7 days of the peaceful deities and 7 days of the wrathful deities, on the 15th day, the thought body of propensities changes to a denser version of itself called the desire body. This desire body is given the powers of unimpeded motion and miraculous action, meaning it can travel anywhere in an instant and go straight through walls and other physical objects. We are even encouraged to test the desire body to experience our new powers and prove to ourselves that we must really be dead. O nobly born, thou art actually endowed with the power of miraculous action. Thou art able in a moment to traverse the 4 continents round about Mount Meru, or thou canst instantly arrive in whatever place thou wishest. Thou hast the power of reaching there within the time which a man taketh to bend, or to stretch forth his hand. O nobly born, unimpeded motion implieth that thy present body, being a design intellect having been separated from its seat, is not a body of gross matter, so that now thou hast the power to go right through any rock masses, hills, boulders, earth, houses, and Mount Meru itself without being impeded. Even the king of mountains, Mount Meru, can be passed through by thee, straightforward and backwards, unimpededly. If we have proceeded this far still without liberation, we are again urged towards meditation. We are also warned that at this point we may see living relatives giving alms, performing religious ceremonies, or sacrificing animals in our names, which may anger or sadden us, but to be careful that such emotions could cause us to be reborn in hell. If we feel attached to worldly goods that we left behind, or because of seeing our old possessions being enjoyed and owned by other people, we should not feel jealous or upset at our successors, nor attached to our possessions any longer. We are told to renounce them and cast them away, because we can no longer possess them. O nobly born, when thou art driven hither and thither by the ever-moving wind of karma, thine intellect, having no object upon which to rest, will be like a feather tossed about by the wind, riding on the horse of breath, ceaselessly and involuntarily start to dim as we frantically search for a new body, thinking about a future life. We will be drawn towards couples engaging in intercourse, and soon find a womb to enter where we may be born again. The Book of the Dead warns us, however, to instead meditate with peace and tranquility on the vacuous clear light, which will shut the womb door. If unable to do this, we are destined for reincarnation. But first enter a judgment scene very similar to the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Then I'm
Both scenes feature symbolic scales of justice, but in the Tibetan version, rather than weighing our heart against a feather, a number of small white pebbles representing our good karma, and a number of small black pebbles representing our bad karma, are weighed on the scale. O nobly born, listen, that thou art suffering so cometh from thine own karma. It is not due to anyone else's, it is by thine own karma. Accordingly, pray earnestly to the precious Trinity that will protect thee. If thou neither prayest nor knowest how to meditate upon the great symbol, nor upon any tutelary deity, the good genius, who was born simultaneously with thee, will come now and count thy good deeds with white pebbles, and the evil genius, who was born simultaneously with thee, will come and count out thy evil deeds with black pebbles. Thereupon thou wilt be greatly frightened, awed, and terrified, and wilt tremble, and thou wilt attempt to tell lies, saying, I have not committed any evil deed. Then the Lord of Death will say, I will consult the mirror of karma. So saying, he will look in the mirror, wherein every good and evil act is vividly reflected. Lying will be of no avail. Then the Lord of Death will place round thy neck a rope and drag thee along. He will cut off thy head, extract thy heart, pull out thy intestines, lick out thy brain, drink thy blood, eat thy flesh, and gnaw thy bones. But thou wilt be incapable of dying. Although thy body be hacked to pieces, it will revive again. The repeated hacking will cause intense pain and torture. Even at the time that the pebbles are being counted out, be not frightened, nor terrified. Tell no lies, and fear not the Lord of Death. Thy body being a mental body is incapable of dying, even though beheaded and quartered. In reality, thy body is the nature of voidness. Thou needst not be afraid. The lords of death are thine own hallucinations. Thy desire body is a body of propensities and void. Voidness cannot injure voidness. The qualityless cannot injure the qualityless. Apart from one's own hallucinations, in reality, there are no such things existing outside oneself as Lord of Death, or God, or Demon, or the bull-headed spirit of death. Act so as to recognize this. Similar to the Egyptian god Ammit, devourer of the dead, who would eat heavy hearts off the scale of justice, the Tibetan Lord of Death dismembers and devours those deceased who fail their judgment. In fact, he repeatedly does so, not simply to punish, but to prove to the deceased that we are not our bodies. Our bodies, the judgment scene, and the Lord of Death himself are all said to be simply hallucinations emanating from our own consciousness. If we cannot realize this, we will continue to be reborn time and again. Walter Evans Wentz wrote, each deity, as it dawns from its appropriate psychic center, represents the coming into after-death karmic activity of some corresponding impulse or passion of the complex consciousness. As though in an initiatory mystery play, the actors for each day of the bardo come on the mind stage of the deceased, who is their sole spectator, and their director is karma. The higher or more divine elements of the consciousness principle of the deceased dawn first in the full glory of the primal clear light, and then, in ever-diminishing glory, the visions grow less and less happy. The peaceful deities of the heart center, and then of the throat center, merge into the wrathful deities of the brain center. Finally, as the purely human and brutish propensities personified in the fiercest of the wrathful deities, as horror-producing and threatening spectral hallucinations come into the field of mental vision, the percipient flees in dismay from them, his own thought forms, to the refuge of the womb, thereby making himself to be the plaything of Maya, and the slave of ignorance. In other words, in a manner similar to that in which the earth-plane body grows to maturity and then withers, and after its death disintegrates, the after-death body, called the mental body, grows from the heavenly days of its bardo childhood to the less idealist days of its bardo maturity, then fades and dies in the intermediate state, as the knower, abandoning it, is reborn.
Rip. Coppola. Coppola. Alright, we're gonna watch the downfall of Game of Thrones. The video.
So you are on one hand trying to aspire to really do something. On the other hand, you're not allowed to be pretentious.
I gotta poop. I'll be right back. This is by Movie Overload, revisiting Game of Thrones. I gotta poop. So I'll be back. Where's the pause? Pause button.
Show that had the world at its feet for years. In 2011, HBO began
do you mean? What are you talking about? That's yeah, yeah. I drew that a couple weeks ago, and I still haven't posted the video. I feel so bad. But I mean, the Avi is so good, right? That's me as a VTuber. Doesn't that look good, Lily? Listen, one day in maybe like 20 years or something. That's no matter if that's years. That's still one day from now. What you moved the couch, didn't you? Yes, you did. Get in here. You moved the couch. Little turd. But no, I want to be able to draw it one day. So like in 20 years, I should be able to draw my character. Lily says she doesn't like my Avi. My Avi looks cool. All right, all right. She said, "Ew, is that your Avi?" She said, what is that? Ew." That's what she said. Don't kick my stuff, please. So rude. Yeah, one day I'm gonna be able to like draw my Avi, and it'll be like, isn't that what it's called? Yeah, your avatar. Yeah, like your Avi. All right. Well, you're not in the VTuber scene. How you gonna make it as a VTuber if you don't know anything about VTubers? Anyway, I'm gonna be able to draw and animate it, so we'll be like doing the VTuber thing, where they're like, well, no, he'll it should like get like a little capture thing, so you like have your webcam, and then it'll like fire. You think so? You, like just to start off until we learn how to like be as good as a Fiverr person. That makes sense. Maybe get one that's like not actually $5. Christmas presents. All right, 3 months unveiling new avatar.
Again, adapting George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire novels into some of the greatest.
Do you think I need to play this in 1.5 speed? No, it's too fast. I'll try. We're just trying to see like but this is like more of a not really on his writing. Did he help write this? The show? Like the ending? Yeah, he definitely had to like help with the ending, right? You think so? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, like a a teaser. He's like, he's like he leaked this ending, and then the ending's like everyone's like, ew. Well, I would never write that. Why would he not just rewrite it then? Like, just say like, yeah, this is the ending, and then so everyone can shut the hell up, and then he would just rewrite it on his own time.
Seasons of
Coward.
TV ever
What a
put to
coward,
screen.
bro.
But it isn't exactly a mystery that Game of Thrones experienced somewhat of a downfall in its later seasons, which resulted in arguably the worst
be
final
okay
season of
to
any
be
TV
bad,
show
bro.
in history. Almost 2 years ago, House of the Dragon managed to breathe life back into the Game of Thrones name with an incredible season of television,
Like, he was
recapturing some of
bad
the
at
magic
one
that
point,
made those early
right?
seasons of Game of Thrones some of the best TV ever created, bringing back the political intrigue of those early seasons.
They
instead
like
of
House of
focusing mainly
Dragon,
on
yeah.
large-scale plot
But that's not
armor
the
that
point,
become
though.
synonymous with the later seasons of Game of Thrones. Now, just before House of the Dragon
Oh, I
aired
don't
in
know. We haven't
2022,
seen
I made a
it, so
video
I
revisiting
haven't
the
looked
failure of
anything
Game of
up on
Thrones,
it.
but that was pretty much the second video I ever
I'll have
uploaded
to,
on
like,
this
look
channel,
it
and
up.
it was absolutely terrible. House of the Dragon, since that video, has managed to bring Game of Thrones back in a big way, and
What?
season
They
2 of
still
House
got
of the
paid? They
Dragon has
don't
just
care.
began its run right now. And it just so happens that it's been 5 years since Game of Thrones ended, so I wanted to take a deep dive retrospective look
Dude,
into Game of
I didn't know
Thrones.
this
The
guy
good,
has
the
been
bad,
writing
and
the
the
same
goddamn
book
awful.
for
As 5 years on
12
from its end, we
years.
revisit the downfall of one of the
Like,
greatest shows
just
ever
this
made.
one part, the dance or whatever.
So, some background information as we get into this
Crazy.
video. Game of Thrones isn't just another TV show to me. This is my favorite show and IP, really, ever. I've watched Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon multiple times.
He's
I've read
like, if
books.
you
Hell, I even
talk
have a
shit
Daenerys
about Game
Targaryen
of
tattoo on
Thrones,
my arm. This show means
I'm gonna talk more shit about it because I love it more. he speaks a little fast, unlike the other YouTubers. So we're gonna do
a lot to me. So just keep that in mind if I get a little heated when we get into the juicy stuff. Anyway, in 2011, we were blessed with Game of Thrones, a show that really went above and beyond and became a pop culture phenomenon and was often crowned as the best show in the world. When you were tuning into an episode of Game of Thrones, you knew that you were in for a good time. When you heard this, you knew that you were about to sit through 45 minutes to an hour of the best TV you'd ever seen. It was a show about
True Blood also existed during
Westeros, with several houses plotting and scheming their way to the throne.
A true
Each
masterpiece,
perfectly placed in the story to serve their purpose. Many of those characters extremely hard to read, allowing backstabbing, plotting, and scheming in a political sense to be the core of the show. And with all this political squabbling between houses taking place, there was a threat in the distance looming over everything beyond the wall, which would ramp up with each individual season. Like, you were just hooked. You were always anticipating what the threat beyond the wall would entail for Westeros. But you stayed and you kept coming back for that political aspect of the show. It balanced fantasy with drama extremely well. Game of Thrones quickly gained a reputation where no character in the show was safe. Anyone could die at any time, regardless of their importance to the story, the actor playing the character. It didn't matter, because plot armor in early Game of Thrones
yeah, it's backpack. Discover. I'm currently at binoculars. Binoculars? Binoculars? Maybe they're binoculars. These noculars are by. My bad, my bad. Alright, my bad.
of Game of Thrones, and there is one word that can describe the show almost better than any other, and that word is balance. This show had an absurd amount of characters to balance and weave through its intricate story. It had Daenerys in the east, the Starks in Winter, the heart of the political side of the show, King's Landing, the Wall, the Eyrie, Dragonstone, the Iron Islands, with each location featuring multiple mainline characters. It became apparent to me pretty quickly how well they managed to balance dozens of key characters across such a massive show, and it still impresses me when I rewatch it to this day. A major part of how the early seasons struck this balance was due to the formula in which the episodes were made. We'd get 5 to 10 minutes in a certain location, and then 5 to 10 minutes somewhere else, and by the episode's end, we've basically caught up with all the characters and progressed their story in some way. There was no filler. Every single episode mattered. Despite spending small amounts of time with each character in each episode, the show was smart in how it threaded everything together. The main King's Landing plot bled into the subplot in Winterfell. It even reached across the sea and connected with Daenerys in Essos, with assassins coming after her at Robert Baratheon's request. So although these characters were split up for the majority of the show, the narrative remained consistent with all of them. Everything was separated but still tied together perfectly. And as the seasons progressed, these stories would overlap and lead to incredible moments. I think back to Baelor in season 1 where Ned Stark died, or the Reigns of Castamere, aka The Red Wedding, which I still think might be the best episode of television I've ever seen. What was great about these moments was they were all earned. The show never went for shock value for the sake of it. When TV shows in 2024 tend to trend, it's because of a cameo or some form of nostalgia.
There's no way,
bait.
bro.
Game of Thrones never needed that because the writing was so smart. The characters were
Bro, did Caitlyn Stark really need to die at the Red Wedding? Right? Like, out of the characters that did die, did Caitlyn Stark need to die? Did Robb Stark really need to die? Did, like, anyone really need to die at the Red Wedding? Like, did that hinder Jon? Like, did Robb need to die for Jon to be the main character? Right? Is that why Robb died? So is Robb's death justified? I don't know. Is Caitlyn Stark too smart for Littlefinger to outwit? Or what's that other guy's name? I forgot that other guy's name. The Big Finger? Yeah, it was like what's Tywin? Yeah, Tywin. The like could Caitlyn have outsmarted him or Cersei? Would Sansa's plot been able to progress that way if Caitlyn was still alive? Did Caitlyn need to die for Sansa to take over the plot? I think yeah, it's because like he made so many POVs that the plot line only needed one POV for that specific plot line that plot thread that he had. He had to kill certain for the show, not for the book, like the show. I'm saying he, but overall, like the writers and directors.
So rich,
like, is that
and
why?
every major beat of the story was earned. The highs of this show were just unlike anything we see today. Some of my favorite moments from this show are the smaller dialogue exchanges between these characters. Like Robert and Cersei talking about their marriage was somehow one of the best scenes of the first season. Also, basically any scene where Littlefinger and Varys were trying to get one up over the other, like the iconic Chaos is a Ladder scene. Tywin making every single person in the room seem smaller regardless of who they were. Even a king, he was always the person in control. And basically any minor dialogue scene with Oberyn in season 4. Like, this show didn't need those big headline moments for it to stand out, although it definitely has them, but I often find that the gold of this show was found in those smaller moments like the ones I listed, and there are countless others as well. Now, I'd be remiss to ignore the 4th season of this show, which is basically where this portion of the video ends. Season 4 of Game of Thrones is, in my opinion, the best single season of television. Sansa, Cersei's Walk of Atonement, Dany riding Drogon for the first time, and some other moments too. But it became clear that there was evidence of a decline. The King's Landing plot became the worst of all of them with the Faith Militant. The show would often stagnate when we had to listen to the High Sparrow say the same thing over and over again. You also had characters such as Littlefinger starting to make questionable choices that would later result in his death in season 7. For example, he betrays Sansa and aligns himself with the Boltons, who the North hates and also don't have Tywin's backing anymore because he's dead, and this is the first domino to fall that leads to his death. Like, it's so dumb. One of, if not the smartest characters in the show's death is rooted in a writing oversight, which is really frustrating. You also had Sir Barristan dying for some reason at the hands of the Sons of the Harpy. This character had so much more to offer, and his death came off as a desperate attempt to keep the whole nobody is safe notion from the earlier seasons and to have some action because action equals good, apparently. It didn't feel like an earned death through the writing. This character needed to stick around for the sake of Daenerys' character. Sir Barristan is the only real link Dany had to Rhaegar and the Mad King. Wouldn't this character be literally ideal to have around when you went for the Mad Queen arc that you rushed in the later seasons? I guess not. Don't die for no reason. This was the first time that it really happened. There was also a significant dumbing down of Tyrion, who was once up there as the smartest character in the show. This was the start of what led to Tyrion being just a complete moron in the later seasons. Stannis also just dies this season after hanging around at the wall, not really doing anything. And it's just extremely anticlimactic for such a cool character. Jon also dies in this season, which at face value is actually incredibly ballsy, but he's revived a few episodes later, and for no reason, considering the prince that was promised prophecy was never fulfilled. But we will get to that later, don't you worry. So whilst nothing was season 8 levels of disastrous by Game of Thrones standards, there was a dip in season 5, and season 6 pretty much followed suit, although I'd argue it's a slightly better season than season 5. Season 6 did have some pretty disappointing resolutions to certain subplots as well, such as Arya's time in Braavos. It kind of just came to a whimpering end after some really ridiculous plot armor. And speaking of plot armor, this is where it really started to become a problem.
Why is she not dead?
You could argue it started in season 5 when the White Walker throws Jon around instead of just killing him, sure. But Arya getting stabbed multiple times by the waif and being fine was just ridiculous. And then there's the whole Battle of the Bastards plot armor, which has kind of become legendary at this point. It's one of the best episodes of the show, make no mistake, but the plot armor is insane. And the finale episode, The Winds of Winter, has one of the best openings to any episode in the history of the show, with Cersei blowing up the Sept, and finally ridding us of the Faith storyline once and for all. But let's be honest, what made this scene so great was Ramin Djawadi, the composer of the show. No matter how much Game of Thrones declined, this man always cooked, and the music was incredible. So seasons 5 and 6 of Game of Thrones aren't that bad. They've got issues, but are still pretty good TV. Season 7, on the other hand, that's a different story. Season 7 of Game of Thrones is entertaining, sure, but it is one of the dumbest seasons of TV I have ever seen. Previous staples of Game of Thrones were thrown out the window, all in the name of condensing as much as possible into a season with fewer episodes. For the first time in Game of Thrones history, Season 7 didn't stick to the 10 episode per season structure,
ran out of money,
instead
man.
opting for 7 episodes,
Seems like a
which
money
is
problem.
fine, but this season has more major events jammed into it than the past 3 seasons combined. Yet it contains, up until that point, the least amount of episodes we'd seen in a season of this show. Like, just for fun, let's list off the major events that happen in just Season 7. Arya destroys House Frey. Dany arrives in Westeros. Jon meets Dany. Jon goes beyond the wall to catch a White. Viserion is killed. Jon and Dany come face to face with Cersei. Euron and his fleet attack Theon and Yara. Joffrey's killer is revealed. The spoils of war. Tyrion and Jaime reunite for the first time since Season 4. Uncle Benjen dies. Cersei's pregnant. Jon and Dany shack up. Littlefinger dies. Jon and Theon come face to face. The Stark children reunite. Jaime finally walks away from Cersei. Jon's true lineage is revealed, and the dead cross the wall. All of that happens in the shortest season to date. Thrones used to have a reputation for taking its time, letting events build up, letting those character moments stew in the audience's mind. But it was like the showrunner said, well, I've done all the build up in previous seasons, let's just throw everything at the wall this season. Which I guess is fine at face value, as the groundwork had been laid for them to go balls to the wall, but all of this happens at the sacrifice of logic. Like Dany flying from Dragonstone to Beyond the Wall in 5 minutes minutes as our band of heroes are stuck in the middle of a frozen lake surrounded by the dead. Absolutely nobody is buying that. The Night King opting to not kill the larger dragon with Daenerys on the back standing right in front of him, but instead opting to kill the smaller dragon flying a very far distance away in the sky. The plot armor surrounding the other in a jump cut. Gendry running 7 marathons in 2 minutes. Like, all of this in season 7 is stupid. It is. But again, it's also entertaining as hell. And despite season 7 being incomprehensibly dumb, it does have great moments that we've been waiting to see for a long time, like Olenna's admission. This scene is amazing. 10 out of 10. The dead crossing the wall. Amazing. Most of Jon and Dany's interactions. Amazing. But at what cost? The cost of something that this show held dear. Logic, smart writing, and time. Again, when I watch season 7, do I scoff at the stupidity? Yeah, I am. But I'm also shoving popcorn down my throat because I'm having a good time. Because some of the stuff is generally great. But it signifies a massive problem with the stigma surrounding what Game of Thrones actually is. Let me explain. A major contributor to the rise of Game of Thrones is how it wasn't afraid to actually take its time in telling a complex story, with rich and vibrant characters, leading to incredible payoff due to the time spent building up said story and characters. These days, as people's attention spans continue to shrink, we often see shows just cutting to the chase because large portions of audiences can't make it through an episode without Subway Surfers playing in the bottom half of their screen. Game of Thrones never cared about that. It knew its audience was mature and it treated its audience as such, at least in the early seasons. This was highlighted to me in the later Game of Thrones seasons and pretty heavily after House of the Dragon came out. Most people loved House of the Dragon and said it was a strong return to the series' roots, with it not being afraid to push the action to the back and let the politics of the show take center stage, which is exactly what Game of Thrones did in its earlier seasons. A true return to form to what made Game of Thrones so great. Yet the vast majority of people who didn't like House of the Dragon tend to form the exact same opinion. It's boring. Nothing happens. It's just people talking. I want dragons. This is what happens in the modern day when a show actually takes its time in crafting a compelling story with complex characters. People get bored. I know, it's insane. It really is. Now, why am I saying all of this? Well, for some reason, people have this sick notion in their head that what made Game of Thrones so great was the big battles and the dragons, but that was just never the case. What made Game of Thrones so great and caused its meteoric rise as a pop culture phenomenon was story and characters, the political scheming and backstabbing, the Game of Thrones, the rich world set up by George R.R. Martin. The action was just the cherry on top in the penultimate episode. Game of Thrones was a political drama in its early days, but it evolved into a fantasy action show in its later seasons, and I think season 7 is a perfect example of that. It kind of lost its identity a little bit. The Game of Thrones side of Game of Thrones was always what made it so great. Figuring out a character's motivations and how it fits into the story was fascinating. Who killed Joffrey? Who did this? Who did that? Will this character do this? What is Littlefinger up to? What is Varys up to? Like, it was just must-watch TV. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying the action side of Game of Thrones sucks by any means. Like Blackwater, Watchers on the Wall, Hardhome, incredible battle sequences, and some of my favorite episodes. The point I'm trying to make is, what made this show so...
I feel like at some point, kind of like lost interest in who was actually going to sit on the throne, and kind of just like wanted more action to happen. So maybe that was like the catering. Like, don't cater to the audience that wants action, or the audience that like wants like the the political drama, and lean too heavily on that, but just like tell the story how it's supposed to be like told. But for TV, that's kind of
so great was that political aspect of the show, and it's no coincidence that once that side started to fizzle out, the show started to decline. The show opted for more action and less story in the later seasons, which, funnily enough, the actor that played Gendry poked fun of in an interview.
Well, that was totally what season 7 was all
the
about.
Story or the writing relatively stayed the same.
So it's clear that a major part of the downfall of Game of Thrones was the switch from it being a sprawling political drama to an action fantasy show. It comes back to that word I spoke about earlier: balance. Game of Thrones balanced the political aspect of the show with action perfectly, and then the later seasons tipped the scales dramatically in the action direction, and it definitely did the show no favors at all. But let's be honest, the real downfall of Game of Thrones, it came in the final season, so let's just get into it. Season 8 of Game of Thrones, and to be honest, this is probably going to take up the bulk of the video. I am honestly shocked that it has been 5 years since this season aired and Game of Thrones concluded. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to revisit it in this video. Now, I'm going to structure this part of the video going episode by episode because when I spoke about Season 8 a couple of years ago, I kind of skipped over about half the season for some stupid reason. So, Episode 1. Hear me out here. This isn't that bad at all. It's actually fine. Yes, it has some of the issues the previous seasons had, with Tyrion being reduced to making jokes about Varys not having balls, characters doing things because reasons, but things start out relatively fine. The shots of Arya and Sansa seeing a dragon for the first time are great. Theon deciding to go north to fight for the Starks. There are subtle, nice moments like Sansa and Tyrion reminiscing on the last time they saw each other being Joffrey's wedding, because it reminds us when the show was actually really good. But one thing I really don't like about what Season 8 did starts in this episode. Sansa hating Dany. It feels forced to create a divide between Jon and Daenerys. She logically doesn't have a major reason to hate Daenerys straight off the bat given the context of their situation. Sansa says it's because Jon abandoned his crown and bent the knee, and what that means for the North. But in doing so, Jon brought 2 dragons north to fight the undead, as well as the Unsullied and the Dothraki. They literally have 0 chance of winning if he didn't bend the knee. Hell, even though he did, they barely still have a chance. So why is Sansa, a character that's supposed to be smart by this point, so preoccupied with what comes after the upcoming conflict where it's almost certain that they're all going to die? Sansa's inability to grasp common sense and how it lights the fire of this conflict between Jon and Daenerys is so unnecessary. It's Benioff and Weiss trying to add fuel to the fire for when Jon's true lineage comes to light, meaning that Daenerys' crown is threatened by him.
And they
But more
didn't
than
kill
anything else,
Sansa
this is a
earlier.
drawback of them rushing a Mad Queen arc in one season. They have to create as much conflict as possible with Daenerys this season to try and pull it off. And this was one of the first missteps they took. The conflict between Jon and Dany makes sense here, but Sansa not being able to grasp the situation they're in with the fight against the dead and caring more about titles than common sense is so below the and its smarter characters. Now, this episode ends with Sam telling Jon that he's the true heir to the Iron Throne as the child of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, which is a scene I actually quite like. And although it's revealed to us in earlier seasons, I do like that this scene makes it clear to Jon that Ned Stark was an honorable man, having kept that promise he had to Lyanna to keep Jon safe from Robert Baratheon. This is a rare good scene in Season 8. But moving on to Episode 2. This is kind of the calm before the storm. Much like Episode 1, it doesn't screw up majorly. Most of the episode is delegated to small moments between characters that we've been on this journey with over all these years. Now, for the most part, again, this episode doesn't do a whole lot wrong. It's fine. The Gendry and Arya stuff really wasn't needed at all, but everything else is okay for what it is. Brienne being knighted by Jaime is obviously the best part of the episode and a rare highlight of Season 8. Jaime also arriving in the north and vowing to fight for the living in front of Daenerys, the Mad King's daughter who he famously killed. It feels like a nice completion of his arc, at least for now. There's Jaime also confronting Bran and apologizing for what he did in the show's pilot, which kickstarted everything. Again, nice completion of Jaime's arc, for now. Like, they were actually treating Jaime's character with respect in this episode, and it's basically the last time they do. We also get more conflict between Sansa and Daenerys, but I kind of covered this part already when I spoke about Episode 1. Jon also tells Daenerys who he really is, thus swinging into full motion the conflict between Jon and Dany, which is one of the blocks to fall that leads her to going full Mad Queen. It's a good scene, but I just wish the writing around it wasn't so contrived to help pull off this Mad Queen arc in just one season. And then, of course, the dead arrive in Winterfell. But then we have Episode 3, The Long Night. This is where Season 8 really started to turn into an absolute famous disaster.
I don't really see anything,
This was the moment that everyone had been waiting for since the Ocho. All of those seasons of build-up, the ambiguous king, the dead, all of it building up to this, the dead, all of it building up to this moment.
My god.
And it's one of the most disappointing episodes of the entire... Well, the odds, he's right there. Oh, that's right, because the writing this season is god-awful and makes no sense. So instead of doing that, Cersei kills Missandei right in front of Dany after refusing to kill Tyrion for absolutely no reason. Now Dany's mad with a fully able dragon. What a absolute disaster of an episode. But Episode 5, The Bells, is perhaps the most infamous episode of them all. Jon's super extensive and thought-provoking dialogue just continues once again.
She is my queen.
Jon and Dany's conflict also continues to grow because Sansa told Tyrion about who Jon really is. Remember that groundbreaking news that we didn't get to see? Yeah, great. Well, Tyrion knows and has now told Varys, and Varys obviously has a problem with it. Because Varys is the only character in this season that actually has some common sense. So of course, the now absolutely batshit dumb Tyrion snitches on Varys, resulting in our favorite eunuch becoming a crispy boy. The only character this season who ever says anything that actually...
So, his only problem is that it was rushed, right? I mean... Like I said, they
ground, leveling the entire city and just about everyone in it. Now, production-wise, this is incredibly impressive, I have to say. The visuals here are amazing, and the VFX artists, they absolutely crushed this. It looks great, but the writing around it is so unforgivable. The Mad Queen arc, I don't hate it. In fact, I think if they actually took their time wrapping seasons, it may have actually been possible. But you suck this dramatic off in just 5 episodes. You simply cannot justify Dany changing that much in that short of a time frame. There is no logical way you can defend Dany's Mad Queen arc in Season 8. It is simply too rushed. Again, that's coming from someone who actually doesn't mind Dany's end goal being a Mad Queen arc. But this is not how you do it. This is the complete opposite of how you do it. Like, even at face value, there is no reason for Daenerys to snap in this moment. Maybe if they saved Rhaegal's death for this moment, or Missandei's death for an inciting incident to cause Dany to level the city, but there is literally nothing here but victory. And in the final episode, Jon actually tries to justify this moment due to Rhaegal and Missandei's deaths. So why not tie those two events into this moment as an inciting incident? Because she just snaps in a moment of triumph, which makes no sense. It is a moment of the entire show. Now, amongst the rubble of King's Landing, we do get Clegane Bowl, which brings the Hound's character to a fitting end. His and the Mountain's conflict started with fire, and it ended with fire. It's a little poetic, and I will say I do like the Hound's final scene with Arya, and Arya calling him Sandor. I always loved these two characters together, and at least their dynamic got treated with some respect. We also see Euron Greyjoy die. Finally, this character is complete dog shit in the show, which is annoying because Jaime, of course, runs back to Cersei, and they both get crushed by rocks and die. 5 years on, and I still have no words for this. Literally any other option for Cersei's life fixing the mistakes he's made. He sets off on a journey to find what's west of Westeros. Sansa is Queen of the North, and Jon is to live out his days at the Wall. And that's the end of Game of Thrones. And Jon is to live out his days at the Wall. And that's the end of Game of Thrones. Five years on, and this is still mind-blowing that we got to this point. How a show that many would consider to have been the greatest of all time managed to stoop so low and go out with such illogical garbage writing is just insane.
Just had to finish it, man.
Truly a sad decline for an otherwise masterful series. So that was the decline of Game of Thrones revisited 5 years after its...
I think they saw that, one, they outpaced the books. Two, the interest ever since they outpaced